you are a B2B service-based business and you are looking to gain clients, create more impact and more revenue in your business, to amplify your marketing message with Campbell Rapin. This week, we're going to take you through to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making that convert consistency, well, on the inside. The key to having an extraordinary life comes down to building extraordinary relationships. And while most of us think we're exceptional communicators, I think that there's often an untruth in that reality. And so I'm super excited to bring a good friend of mine today who does build extraordinary relationships, has a unique take on how to do it, and has proof in the pudding when it comes down to how do we actually get better at this? Because when we do it better, we create exceptional impact. So please give a very warm welcome to our guest today, Mr. Scott McGregor. Super excited to have you here.
CCR, I am so excited. You know you're one of my favorite people on the planet.
Oh, thank you, my friend. And I believe you greatly in everything that you do. But I want to ask you that first question, because when you and I first met, we met through someone else. And you said, everybody I've ever met becomes a friend. And take me through right at the beginning, what does it mean to be friendly with somebody? And what does it mean to have an extraordinary opinion that's positive about another human being?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So I think one of the secrets to any success that I've had is my definition of a friend is very different from the average person. So I think oftentimes we will only bestow the friend moniker on somebody like if we're ready to have a slumber party with them. So we have to be like super, super close. And so I have a very liberal definition of friend, and I'll tell you why that's important in a minute. But so my definition of a friend is this: if I know you and you know me and we like each other, we're friends, period, end of story. Now there's a continuum of friendship from you're an acquaintance friend to your BFFs, and you want to move everybody along that continuum. But to me, that is holistically what a friend is. And I think from a mindset perspective, when you start to view people as a friend and not a prospect or not like these other things, you just treat them differently and wonderful things happen. So I have a different definition of friend than probably the average bear.
And I think it's one that feels more genuine than any other I've ever heard. And that's one of the things that I admire about you. And when you start down this pathway of I like you, you like me, there's a difference, as you said, to move up the continuum. And you have built a community. We're both part of a community called the Outliers. But what I think makes the Outlier Project so unique is it is not just a place to make friends. It's a place to build extraordinary relationships. And so I'd love your take on what does it mean to have an extraordinary relationship with another human being?
I think extraordinary relationships are very reciprocal. So people that are wildly enthusiastic about supporting each other, and that creates a flywheel effect where I'm very, very anxious to see you win. And I'm going to do everything I can to see you win, whether that's strategic introductions or whatever the case may be. And I think when you start to put that into play and you all of a sudden have hundreds and hundreds of people like we do in the Outlier Project, you just have created this flywheel of goodness that it's very hard to stop that momentum. So to me, it's people coming together that more.
It's a beautiful community, and I give you huge credit for setting the standard of what is expected in it. And I think there's an interesting thing, and was one of the things that first really impressed me, truthfully, when I met you, is because I earned that right to be in the community every month. And a lot of community builders are fearful that they cannot maybe either maintain this extraordinary level of relationships or really vet and qualify people that are coming from the goodness of their heart. What do you do to help ensure that first, it is the standard and we communicate it? I'll let you answer that before I ask the second question. It's fully fair.
So we do have an odd setup in that we only allow people to join on a month-to-month basis. And that puts the onus on us to provide value. And it's counterintuitive to the way that most people think, because most people think, get people to pay you up front, then you have the cash flow. And I have a very smart friend. His name's Yuri Levine. And Yuri is the only guy I know who has sold 2 companies for over $1 billion a piece. So he sold Waze to Google for a bit, to Intel for over $1 billion. And he said to me once, he said, Scott, if you have a subscription business. And I'm like, okay, more being subscription, you're saying. And he said, because you have a subscription business, you want people to pay you monthly, not annually. And I said, Yuri, I don't get it. Why don't I want the money up front? Don't I want the cash flow? He said, no, you want the feedback. And this is how dumb I am and how smart Yuri is. I'm like, I still don't get it. Explain more. And he said, when people pay you annually, you wait 12 months and then they vote yes or no. And if they vote no, then yes, you lost the money going forward. But what's more important is you lost 12 months of feedback. When people pay you monthly, your feedback loop is like this. So I'm very comfortable in getting immediate feedback from hundreds and hundreds of members. So a lot of people would look at that and say, you're basically, you've got a business that you've got no net underneath you. Like every single person could say, this is not for me, and they could quit and you'd be out of business in a month. I'm a believer that that setup forces you to provide value for your members. And so that's a unique aspect, because that's unbelievably important to sustain the community long term. So it's just a unique setup that we've adopted.
Yeah, and I invite everybody who's listening to this to have that kind of brave, forward-thinking focus of your people. Get the feedback, listen at the very front row, and earn it in every single small action that compounds into what the community becomes. And so this leads to the second question, which is, of course, in a community of people are people, which means that not everybody in every moment will have the same follow through, the same commitment, the same perhaps courtesy. There'll be all kinds of variables in there. So how do you as the community leader decide when you step in or what is appropriate that filters up, if you will? And when you also say, we're a group of adults who believe in this, please take that to heart. How do you navigate that?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So how do I navigate people that are at different stages? Or
let me rephrase. Let me go back. So you've got a community where you've got people that are going to be a whole mix of different things. And you've said, we're going to earn the feedback month to month. But I would imagine that there's times when people are at conflict or people are not upholding your standards. How do you decide as the community owner if extraordinary relationship is a standard and you set out these principles? What happens when it's offside? Yeah.
So those are opportunities to have conversations with people and really figure out, where are we off the mark? I'm a big believer that clear is kind. So most people would just say, you know what? I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to say anything. I feel like we're doing everybody a disservice, and I have a fiduciary responsibility to everybody in the community to uphold those standards. So when we see things that are maybe what we would consider out of bounds, those are things that we address on a regular basis, not from a punitive standpoint necessarily, but to figure out why is it happening? And to just give honest feedback, because at the end of the day, the strength of the community is based on the collective. And, it's very, very important that we've got everybody at least rowing in the same direction. They don't have to be in lockstep, but we want to make sure that we're in the same direction.
I love this. And guys, hear what he said, the community, the power of it isn't Scott, although he's a very big part of the casting of the vision. It comes down to the collective. And as the community grows, because I've been in this community now a year and a half, and I've seen explosive growth. When it first started to maybe build between this, I would say, intimate group to this potentially infinite group, how did you first start to step away from, it's not about me? Because a lot of business owners, especially community owners, have a hard time transitioning this, and every business owner transitions some element in this path.
So from day one, I realized, so I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. I'm probably considered an ambivert, but like if you had to put me on one side or the other, I'm more of an introvert. So I don't really want to be the center of attention. I don't want the spotlight on me. I do understand that I have a certain responsibility as the founder, but it's not my natural inclination to want to be the guy in the spotlight all the time. So I never wanted this to be the Scott McGregor show. And I also understood that our ambitions, which are to grow it to maybe around 1,000 members, and then we're going to stop because that's a whole nother story. I don't want the community to get too big. And because of that, unless you are a really, really magnetic personality, there's not a lot of people that are going to, there's not 1,000 people that are going to follow one person. So I'm not that person. And so with that, I want the power to be with our members. And that's why we do things like power hours and why we have experts like yourself that run our Blueprint series, so that we're really, the power of the community is not me. The power of the community are hundreds and hundreds of people that have a passion and a subject matter expertise in a myriad of different things. And that's where the magic happens. And I think realizing that, not having an ego, not saying, hey, I want this to be about me, I did create a community that was for me in terms of the things that I value: relationships, access, building my business, building my brain, building my body, all of those things. But I never wanted it to be the Scott McGregor show. And thank goodness for everybody that is not.
Well, I appreciate that. It's the introvert saying thing. I don't need the spotlight. I will step into it, but it is not the fuel source for me. And what we have inside this community is, I would say, both a standard, but also lived experience of a life loved, and people living extraordinary, boundaryless adventures, pursuing who they can become is what the tagline comes to mind. For you, was that something you started right at the beginning, that it was part of this, or has it evolved from that very first start? Because it's
I've always been fascinated with.
Go ahead.
I've always been fascinated by the thought of see who you can become. It's very aspirational to me. I'm curious. I've always been curious. Like, what could I accomplish? What could I do? Who could I become? And I've seen enough evidence of people just doing extraordinary things and living extraordinary lives because they've maintained that curiosity over time. That ethos, I think, has been with us pretty much since day one. I think it's now kind of a battle cry. And I think we're all trying to live our version of an extraordinary life. And while that definition might be different, we all want to live an extraordinary life, which for some, has to do with financial gain or other things. For others, it's a life of impact. I mean, it's differs for everybody, but I think none of us want to sleepwalk through life. None of us want to live a vanilla life. We all understand we've got one at bat, and we need to maximize it. And in order to do that, we need to be curious and see who we truly can become.
And I think in the pursuit of seeing who you can become, extraordinary relationships have both a stepping stone element and a what's possible element. So for you, as you look to the future that you're personally living, what does it mean for you to live an extraordinary life?
For me, it's really relatively simple. I see it as a life of impact. Oftentimes, if I'm on a podcast, people will introduce, this is Scott. He started these companies. He wrote these books. He won these awards. He published this magazine, kind of the highlight reel. And I always think at the end of the day, meaning like literally the end of the day, like when I'm not here anymore, I don't think anyone's going to be at my funeral saying, hey, remember those books that Scott wrote? Remember those companies he started? I think the only thing that has lasting staying power is the impact that I make. And that's what gets me out of bed every day. Now, do I need to make money to do that? Yes, I do. But that's not the driver. The driver to live an extraordinary life is to live a life of impact. And so everything I do is centered around, is this going to be impactful to people? And the more the merrier. I don't have a number that I put on it in terms of like, I want to impact 1 billion people or anything like that. But the more the merrier. I want to impact as many people as possible. The community has afforded me that. Whether I was a chief revenue officer or whether I was a CEO, I would like to think that I always made an impact on the people that were interacting with me on a regular basis. But with the community, I see this tremendous, beautiful ripple effect. I see these unbelievable concentric circles that emanate off of the impact that we have on one member, and then this cascading effect that has on others. And that to me is what gets me. I cannot wait to do this because I know it's the life of impact that I want.
I think it's so beautiful in its simplicity, which I'm a big fan of. And I think it's a goal we share. What was the number one goal of 2026? To love my life even more. And it comes from impact. It comes from extraordinary relationships. It comes from this extraordinary to call people friends and to recognize that caring really is a superpower. And when we're not taught it, I think the outliers is out in a community where you're going to see it modeled. So I'd love to ask all my guests this, what is working right now for you to build those extraordinary relationships, to create this impact? What's working and why is it fun and it sizzles for you?
It is such a great question. So what is working is high impact and high access relationships are helping me to build everything that we built. So it helps us attract new members. It helps us educate our current members through access to people that are relatively difficult to get to. So what's great is that my natural inclination is to want to build great relationships. And for many years, I was building these somewhat curious relationships. And I wasn't really sure why, other than I was a very curious person. And now I'm seeing, this is why I've been doing it over many, many decades, is because this is kind of like my life's calling. And essentially what I do for a living is I build high impact, high access relationships. And I'm able to then share those with all the members of our community. So that's what's working for me, is that it's just an extension of my life that happens to have a massive impact on my business.
I love it when a beautiful thing comes together. And access is an interesting one. I think I read it at the start of the year. Somebody in my social network had said the in-room experience, curated communities, if you will, are the new internet. It's where you're learning from. It's where you're evolving from. And it's where you need to prioritize, but at one human to one human impact level. And I think what you've created is extraordinary. Tell us, how do people find you, learn more about the Outlier Project and the work that you do to create the big ripples you are?
Yeah. If you want to see a mess, go check me out on Instagram. If you want to see hopefully a better curated idea of who I am and what I do, go to LinkedIn. That's definitely my social media platform. And let's interact. Let's have dialogue. Let's build a relationship. So send me a message and tell me, why it's interesting to you to connect, and then we'll take it from there. But that's the best way to get a hold of me.
I love it, guys. So slow down to build these extraordinary relationships. Really, truly, we've said it, you've heard it, it's accurate. You are one conversation away from an extraordinary insight, extraordinary opportunity, an extraordinary way to see your heart, your mind, and your body expand. So thank you, Scott. I really appreciate you coming to spend some time with me. I do think you're an extraordinary human being, and I'm grateful to call you friend.
Thank you. You're the best.
That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Marketing Message with me, your host, Campbell Rapin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform so you don't miss an episode. And visit ChristineCampbellRapin /podcast to get a source on how to map your marketing message on our next episode.